Okay, it is actually about 4:28 p.m. Central Standard Time. Today is Wednesday, May the 4th, 2022, and I'm doing this recording a little earlier so you'll have it. Welcome to week number five, and the final lecture for this course for Introduction to Corrections. My name is Richard Wright, and I am going to again remind you that your assignments for week 4 will be completed and graded by the end of the day on Friday. And I do remind you again that it is so important for you to follow what I say in the lectures, pay close attention to what's in the modules, and then most importantly, the rubric. Remember the left side of the rubric. That's the section that you want to maximize your grades. Oftentimes students say, well, I did some of what it said. Well, you have to understand something about the rubric. The rubric operates where it gives you parameters for following instructions, and you get points for following them, and not how well you follow them. Because at the point that you are going now, you want to be able to develop the habit of following the instructions. Why? Because we're preparing you for your future. Because when you are employed, you will be given assignments and opportunities from your future employers. And we want you to be very successful at that. We're not being difficult. And I don't override the points when you don't have citations in the body. You have to have citations in the body. It's because it's APA, references at the end, a cover page. Roman 12 is the font, and properly formatted reference page and cover page as well. We provide you with information to get these things done. It doesn't bode for you very well to rush through these assignments, as you don't have a chance to do them more than once, except if you do them during the week before the grade is completed. So anyway, I'm going to share my screen, and today we're going to talk about weeks 5, and then because there's no lecture next week, I will give you instructions on week 6 assignments. Okay, so let's take a look quickly at the grade book, and let's see what we have here. So you have your written assignment, release planning, sensible revocation, your quiz, which is timed, and then your live classroom phrase that I'm going to give you. Okay? All right, so we'll come back and we'll discuss Module 6 assignments before we adjourn today. Again, let's take a quick look at the calendar. So today is Wednesday. It says 7 p.m., but you'll have it before that. Your initial post was due yesterday. Your reply posts are due Saturday. Your live classroom phrase will be due Sunday, along with your quiz completed and a written assignment. Notice the course ends 2 days later, but you have already gotten the information. So be aware that the course ends on the 10th, and that is all assignments need to be in. At this point, you cannot submit assignments from section 1, 2, or 3, as I've already, unless I've made arrangements with you to do so. Number 4, the assignments were due Sunday, and if you submit them now, then you're going to lose points from Monday, Tuesday. You'll lose 30 points. Okay. So you want to make sure that you get that done. Calendar is very important. Let's look at the announcements. So the announcement for week 5. So it says we're going to deal with the challenges within the field of corrections. Chapter 7, and only pages 189 to 193 need to be read. I provide the PowerPoints for the full chapter 7, 13, 15, and 16 of the text. We're going to deal with challenges in corrections, TPC review, and then finally conclude with vocabulary review. Remember again that your initial posts were due yesterday, Tuesday, and your reply posts due this Saturday. Finally, your written assignment, release planning, and the quiz, and then of course the key phrase, will be due by this Sunday. So I hope you will finish strong. You are familiar with my motto, adversity is the springboard to success. Okay, so let's take a look at the challenges within the field of corrections. But first, let's look at the written assignments. So we're dealing with release planning. In release planning, it means what it says. You're talking about planning for the release of the individual. And you're going to use the scenario above. And for this assignment, you'll be creating a proposal that includes the following: 2 recommendations for this state. Okay. Specific examples for each recommendation. Why you think the recommendations will be the most impactful in this state, and explain how each recommendation is aligned with research, including RNR, which we'll talk about, TPC, and any other principles. Provide credible sources or citations in the body. Very important. Citations support your statements. Very important. If you don't, you ask me why, if I don't provide citations appropriately, why you end up getting 55 or under. That's why. Stated ideas with professional language using grammar and spelling. It's going to be in a Word document. It's going to be double spaced. All right. So it's very important that you get this done. Make it as detailed as possible. Here is the place you stay away from this section. So recommendations. Exemplary explanation of why the 2 identified recommendations that you provide would be most impactful. Thorough examination of the recommendations made to RNR, TPC, and other principles of corrections, and supporting details from credible sources. That's what it says, free from typos, errors, and spelling. If you have no credible sources, you're going to end up over here, very simply. And that's how, some students says, well, that's a small portion. No, it isn't. Following the rubric is essential to getting good grades. I say that all the time. And then the discussion assignment, sensible revocation. And so you want to know, what is sensible revocation? Dealing with these 2 scenarios. In your initial post, select one of the scenarios. All right, one of them, either from Pat or Chris. Explain what constitutes the technical violation as opposed to the new offenses, include examples of both. And then detail the reasons why the parolee selected should not have their sentence revoked. Include examples from the scenario to support your reasons. Describe your thoughts, and then respond to another student's. All right. Then your quiz, which I'm not going to open. You know how that works. Your live classroom recording. This is where you will see the link of this recording that we're doing right now. That will be here, and then I will email it to you. And then your live classroom phrase as your assignment here. Okay. Well, let's talk about these two sections. First, let's talk about the challenges. Okay. So as you know, as there are a lot of issues that face individuals in jails and in prison. And so it's important for you to understand, first of all, the reasons why they're there in the first place. Remember, they were either deemed guilty or pled guilty, found guilty by a judge or jury, or pled guilty, which means that they did something to violate the law in the jurisdiction where they committed the offense, which means that they need to be corrected, as the root word correct means, and given the opportunity as correction officers, correction administrators, you have the responsibility of making sure that those situations occur in a way where, let's get it up, okay, where you have the responsibility of making sure that those individuals are at the point where they are being prepared to return back in the community. So remember, you have a balance between making sure that the public is secure and safe, and you want to have those individuals come back demonstrating that they learn their lesson or learn a new direction in life. And so putting people behind bars is exceptionally expensive because you have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to shelter them. So as a result of that, people go in, they don't get training, they don't have addressed the reason why they were sent there. In short, remember, they are at 12 o'clock when they go in. If they're still at 12 o'clock when they leave, they will be back. If they're at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, there's a 50-50 chance that they will return. If they're at 6 o'clock, there's a decrease because you're going in a new direction in life. You're providing opportunities for those individuals, vocations, education, support to get their minds focused on obeying the law as opposed to transgressing against the law. Okay? And so when individuals find themselves released, most people, when they're released from the facility by parole, that means simply that they're going to spend the rest of their term outside on the condition they maintain satisfying the requirements that are laid out for them by the parole board. And they will be assigned to a parole officer for the parole officer to monitor their activities and make sure that they do so. At the same time, same thing with probation. If a person is placed on probation, which means they're not going to jail, but if they violate the probation, depending on the level of the violation, a petition is filed. The petition will then, if it results in probation being revoked, then the person is incarcerated. But once again, it's more expensive to have those people in that position as opposed to um, being placed in a situation where they are not behind bars and able to continue on their, not on, totally on their own, but with the support of their probation officer or parole officer, depending on whether they're on parole or probation. And so it doesn't make sense to keep seeing the situation where these individuals are involved in a revolving door, or as I like to use, the gerbil wheel, stuck on that wheel, so that all they do is go around and around and around in a circle. And what that really means is that they're not going anywhere, that they find themselves in a situation where they, like a merry-go-round, just same thing over and over. You find that oftentimes, as I learned from my years of practice, that I represented individuals, and then years on down the road, they provided the next generation who also committed crime. So the deal in corrections is to redirect that situation so that it doesn't take place. And that's the bottom line there. So what's the purpose for corrections? And I've kind of elaborated on that. Public safety is one of the primary concerns. When the person comes out, remember, you want the public to feel safe. So you want to provide those individuals with a new direction in life, not to go out and further commit crimes or recidivate, but instead to begin to operate as a responsible individual. And so there are programs that are provided, such as individuals, if they have drug problems, they get treatment for that, alcohol problems. If they're not educated, they have an opportunity to obtain their GED, general education diploma, or earn their high school diploma. And then in some instances, people go with vocations, trades, and some actually will continue on to get their degrees, bachelor's, and so forth. So as I say over and over, it is cheaper to educate than to incarcerate. So if we don't have these programs operating, then we'll have the continued return of these individuals, or they may go and escalate to more serious offenses. And so there are problems. So when individuals are placed on probation and or parole, with the issue of public safety being involved, there are conditions that are given. And if those individuals violate those conditions, then they are possibly going to be found guilty by a preponderance of the evidence, just like in a civil case, not beyond a reasonable doubt, that they violated a condition. And so the key thing is that oftentimes individuals will misunderstand, or either they may be a little bit off, and it depends on how egregious that violation might be. And so remember, though, the goal is not to try to send a person to prison or to jail for violations, technical violations, unless it's quite clear that that individual is has not learned or does not appreciate the liberties that they have. And in that instance, you have no other alternative but to send them to jail or prison. The other way is if you catch a case. And when we say catch a case, that is also um, committing another offense. While you're on probation, we call it being on paper, which means you're under the supervision of the probation or parole department. And so the key thing that we want to have you as probation parole officers to look at um, what was the offense? How serious is it? Is it meritorious to send them to prison? Is it beneficial? I think the answer is no. However, though, you have to look at on a case-by-case basis. And so we operate with what we call sensible revocation. So we determine whether the behavior threatens public safety, which would require a return to prison. If there is a threat to public safety in the actions, then it is inevitable that that person will unfortunately go to prison or jail. And what it does then is it slows down the process of what we call reintegration. Reintegration involves re-entering the community and providing the individual with the tools and things that are necessary to help those individuals to matriculate in their lives, to live their lives as responsible citizens, staying out of the criminal justice system as criminals, as repeat offenders. Okay. So those are so the challenge is to make sure that we focus on helping individuals to 6 o'clock. And while they're at 6 o'clock, provide them with continuous learning, knowledge, resources to help them so that they don't go back to 12 o'clock. Because if they go back to 12, they're going to be what we call recidivists. Okay, so this is just a little piece that you can go over yourself, Introduction to Corrections, and I'll just share a little bit about this. Okay. There's some National Institute of Corrections provide agreements and resources that you can utilize to consider whether a person can be helped or not. There's a library. There's events that you can take a look at, various projects, training, which lists classes and things of that nature. Okay. So now let's talk about the overview of the challenges. And let's look at, first of all, TPC. So what exactly is TPC? Transition from prison to community. In other words, the operation of reintegration. And so the National Institute for Corrections helps to provide direction and instructions for individuals in applying TPC and training for you guys who will become parole and probation officers and correction officers. So the TPC model is designed to reduce recidivism and victimization and to enhance public safety, as we've been talking about already, to help the community to be a safer place to live, fewer victims and offenders, but positively contributing to the community as opposed to um, utilizing the community for crime. All right. So transitioning from prison or TPC involves these various uh, um, processes. So the first one is with assessment. So what we do is we evaluate and determine where are those individuals on the RNR, the risk need position, and we first determine who's the target. Well, the higher the risk, the higher the level of interventions needed. So it depends on what that person really needs in terms of helping them so that they can stay out of trouble. The what exactly is it that we're going to do? What type of thing are we going to do? And what things are we going to focus on? Their antisocial behavior, change that to a new direction, personalities, so that they would have the personality of an individual who would not commit a crime, but the personality of someone who wants to be a responsible uh, um, contributor to the community. We want to focus on the attitudes that are antisocial, their beliefs and values, and change them around so that they can operate in social values within the community. We want to take them away from associates, peers, friends, and so forth, who will put them in a light so that they will stay in trouble. And so what we want to do is, and this is another way of saying from 12 to 6, is move the offender from prison to the community. But they have to be ready. And it involves a lot of case planning, a lot of time put in. Again, remember the key thing is that you must address the reason why the person is there. Must. It's critical. Okay. Focus on big four with attention to criminal thinking and skill deficits. This is the big four again. The history of antisocial behavior, antisocial personality, patterns, attitudes, and associates. Just wanted to refresh you about what that was all about. Always moving forward, moving, as I said, on 6 o'clock, not moving to 7 because you're heading in the wrong direction then. So we learned from research what it is that we need to do to be effective in terms of cutting into criminal behavior, providing skills, as I said, education, opportunities, helping individuals to do little things such as how to get a social security card, how to fill out a job application, how to prepare even a resume, and those kind of things. So again, education, whether it's formal in terms of obtaining college education or either simply receiving the GED or high school diploma. But the key thing is that it's been pretty clear that the more educated a person becomes, the less likely that they will commit criminal activities, especially violent criminal offenses. Integrity and the is absolutely important in terms of application. Say what you mean what you say, stand firm, teaching not the shortcut way, but the way that would probably most benefit the individual as well as the community as a whole. Gender, of course, we deal with people differently based on their sex, and how they operate, what their mind level is, what kind of sort of like dealing with the individual's ability to be able to comprehend or ability to learn. Okay. So we have various stakeholders in the community. We have extended and immediate family. We have mentors and peers that are provided to help with the TPC. And so it's not just what happens with corrections, it's community organizations, churches, faith-based communities, um, other social service agencies to help individuals. And the treatment providers understand R&R and utilize it in the programming that they provide to individuals. The key thing is pointing people to a new direction in life, or as we say, turning over a new leaf. So there are some things that are make us not as straightforward or as smooth as some people would like, and some complication or barriers that may be faced are the lack of understanding of treatment. And the key thing is that we have to impress upon the individuals who are incarcerated or exposed to the correction system. The key thing is to take the knowledge, education, the treatment to benefit them as well as the community. So how do we do this? Prison officials have to think in terms of counseling, providing positive advice, setting good examples. It says, who does this work? Correction officers, case managers, and POs, probation officers, parole officers. The key thing is that from the time that you first come into contact with these individuals, we should begin to think in terms of prison to community, or TPC, recognizing the fact that they're going to be released at some point, and the more prepared they are to deal with the issues that got them there, to keep them from going back in there. Staff is constantly trained. Funding could be an issue because it takes money to provide many of the programs that are necessary to implement the TPC model. Relationships with community partners, organizations that can help individuals depending on what their needs are. A problem, lack of community program or services, especially in rural communities where individuals don't have opportunities provided for them. The key thing is that there should not be a vacuum there. There should always be a place and a time and a situation where individuals are fed with the opportunity to be able to be successful. Okay, and that's that. This is how correction works. So you can look at this knowledge check and you can study this on your own, but I'm just going to go over it. And there's some questions. A management principle, and you'll be able to discover this from your reading. There are 12 of these, holding that a supervisor can effectively oversee only a limited number of subordinates. Management principle, holding that a supervisor can effectively Is that chain of command, boundary violations, or span of control? This sounds like it, but let's see if it's right. There you go. Span of control. One last one. A series of organizational positions in order of authority, with each person receiving orders from one immediately above and issuing orders. How about just trying this one? And that is correct. So you can go over each of these and they will help you. All right, before I give you the key phrase, let's go and take a look at Module 6 assignments. So we're going to deal with your posts, and you're going to initial post, copy and paste your proposal from week 5. That's the simplest thing. So if you have to complete the written assignment, copy and paste it. That's your initial post. So easy. All right. So remember the first part, and remember that post is going to be due the last day of class. The response, review appears, post, and then respond according to these 2 points here. Okay. Again, that's going to be due the last day of class, which is the 10th. And then you have the quiz, which you're familiar with as well. So those are the 2 things. So you don't have a written assignment. You just have the discussion and the quiz. Okay. And I'm not going to go over this other stuff, but I do recommend that before you take the quiz that you do the vocabulary review, which I won't, but I just remind you that it is here. Okay. And again, you click it, so, but let's just look at this one. A concept used to distinguish people according to their cultural characteristics, such as language, religion, and group traditions. Is it ethnicity, race, discrimination, disparity? That's it. Okay. So you go over each of these, just like I told you before. All right. So that's about it. Your phrase for today is correction challenges. Correction challenges. Give me those and you get your points. Well, this is it for me with this class. I hope that you have learned a lot about corrections. We just scratched the surface and just give you some general ideas about what it takes to be successful in corrections. And remember, the goal is to get the individuals back to the community and have them return in a way where they can contribute rather than to take out from the community. Be able to reintegrate from where they came from, but with a new attitude, a new sense of direction, helped by their education, helped by addressing any issues such as drugs or alcohol, or providing those educational opportunities for college, high school, or vocations in various fields. I mean, the sky's the limit. You got computers, You got automobile technology. The sky is the limit, and there's many things that you can do in a vocational skill. All right, so I'm going to say good night to you guys again. I hope to see some of you further down the road next term, starting Tuesday of next week, the 11th. I will be teaching drugs and crime, and then I won't see you guys in this class, but constitutional law. But drugs and crime, I will probably run into some of you, and then we'll have some discussion